What is that time? Michelle, I mean, well, it's Ramadan, so I wasn't sure.
Just confirm.
That's what.
Yeah.
So.
Makes our lives easier.
Exactly.
A lot easier.
As soon as they're.
It's the 94 signatures was a bar to participation.
Yeah. Exactly.
It was almost a bar to our participation.
It's a lot of signatures.
It's a team effort.
Well, and then I saw her message and was like, oh my God, I missed the, you guys being here. Figured you knew where I was.
I know you were on my list. I had like a separate list of like emergency people who I knew I could go to. Absolutely had to.
Ready?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Monday, April 17th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting. First order of business being public station. Just before you do that, there's two board members absent today. So just note that Michelle Walsh and Harvey. So public participation.
Nothing.
Okay. Going to the previous meeting minutes on pages 2 through 4. Just take a close look at those and ask for a motion.
You want a motion to approve last meeting of last month's board meeting? So,
Okay, all those in favor?
actually, I do have a discussion, discussion things on, I think, before we approve. it.
Okay, all right, so any discussion on the meeting?
Yeah, so on page 5 at the top, there's some miscellaneous text that has, see, it says GK, this is a rewrite, most of the language in order, that, I think that's shorthand for what, so that should just strike that. I think, is this new? Is this new? I got that. So that's that sentence, I think, just has to be taken out in the final copy. And then I'm just gonna direct the board's attention to the naming rights discussion on the top of page 6 for just a moment, because I know we're going to be revisiting this, and where it says Michelle Walsh said the board needs to first make a decision on whether they want new naming rights or not, and that it doesn't make sense to iron out the minutia when the overall concept hasn't even been decided on. I just want the board to hold that in their heads when we get to that item on the agenda. That's it.
Okay, any other discussion on the minutes? Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, and the motion passes. Moving on to the financial review.
Can you show the revenue expenses as a little easier to? So we continue to show underspending in most categories, and expenses are tracking about 8% under budget, which is consistent with last year at this time. And we know that spending will catch up as we approach the end of the fiscal year, especially for library materials. You know how that spending is just not even throughout the year. If you want to scroll back up to the cash report, that's the first page, just to review where we are with our cash, and we have some money in the money market. We have the treasury bill. And we have 2 CDs. The $1 million CD comes due on May 9th, and the treasury bill is due on May 18th. So we'll be looking at rates and our cash flow to determine how much to reinvest and for what the duration should be. As we approach the end of the year, we have to be mindful of our cash flow to make sure we have enough, as we go into the end of the year and the beginning of the next fiscal year. But we'll be having conversations. Actually, we're going to be meeting with a representative from TD Bank in the beginning of May And we'll talk about that as well as, well, we often meet with them just to kind of review our accounts and see where we stand. And we'll make a determination about that, probably, the beginning of May. I'll make a recommendation to the finance committee, we'll meet, and discuss, and then we'll move forward with, either rolling these over or rolling partially over, or, whatever makes sense. Should we have a chance to look at it?
Is Michelle still the only person who's on that committee of trustee? Or has anyone joined her? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, I come.
Okay, good, okay. Just additional
So there's
perspectives, I
another-
think is
right,
valid, yeah.
yeah. And, anyone wants to join, please join us.
Yeah, but it's helpful, I think, to have at least.
Even
two
if it's for like,
perspectives.
one meeting. Welcome anyone to join. Yeah. Good, all right, any questions?
I do want to just make one other comment about banking security. I know that has come up in the past.
Yep.
Because we do meet with TD Bank pretty often, we feel pretty comfortable with what they're doing for us. We have really good communications with them. We have an irrevocable standby letter of credit through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, which backs our money in the bank. So the money is fully collateralized, and they review it every day to make sure that that's the case. So we feel really pretty good that, things are where they need to be with them, and that our funds are very secure, as secure as they could possibly be.
Yeah, is there any other questions on the finance report? Okay, need a motion on the finance report and the warrant.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
She's got it.
No, I was just gonna, I move to accept the financial report.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion, all those in favor, please, raise their hand, seeing opposition, that motion passes. Personnel report.
It's a sideways report. All right, here we go. So, some movement up here, but I have some positions that are open that I'm seeking to fill. So, let's take the simple ones first. We have a custodial worker, a part-time, building and grounds worker. 7.63 hours a week, who I'm seeking to backfill that position to the same schedule. I've got a part-time librarian one who is leaving, and I'm seeking to fill that in exactly the same schedule to backfill that position. So those are the two regular ones. The more unusual one is this position, this public services librarian. I'm seeking your approval to reclassify that from a librarian to a library assistant. Last month, I was asking to reclass a full-time library assistant into a librarian. This month, I'm seeking a part-time librarian into a library assistant. This is to fill the Friday night and weekend rotation, which is a very difficult position for us to fill. And we had some positive response to a canvas for this position as a the library assistant, and a really strong candidate who I think I would like to hire. So we're going to do that. I need your permission to reclass that position to library assistant.
And when you communicate this with the personnel committee, you mentioned that there'll always be a librarian on Friday night also.
Correct.
So it's
Yes.
not like a substitute, there'll still be a librarian on.
Question on, just a 7.63 hours is very.
It is. So that's okay. So you talk about it is. No, because it involves a weekend rotation. So it's a 1 and 3 weekend rotation. So we've got 11 hours over the course of a weekend. Take that 11 hours divided by 3, and you end up with a little chunk, and then 4 hours regularly every week. So 4-hour shift every Friday, boom, 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 and then a 1 equals out to this many hours. So obviously it's 4 hours, 15 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours, 15 hours, averaged out over the year.
And you have someone who's interested in a position as that.
We had positive responses to that canvas.
And I think you also discussed that you could reconvert the position down the road, should there be more of a demand for we can reclassify it later on.
Correct. Yeah, and the thing we're missing is if there's a higher level reference question, this person will be trained to turn that over to the librarian. But other than that, basically the difference is library assistant is typically someone with a 4-year degree, whereas a librarian is someone with a master's degree. So it's just, we have library assistants who work on our desks all the time, every day, already at the library. So.
And with that discussion, the personnel committee did support bringing it to the whole floor, but also put this support behind it.
Make a motion to approve the personnel report.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion on that report? Great, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposition, that carried. So, director.
Okay, let's see. So we were really busy in March. So the children's place was frequently completely full on the weekends to the point where people were saying, oh, we need more space. There's something for us to keep in mind as we're looking at space. How much room do we have in the children's room? Just for me, it makes me feel really good to have that level of like crowd comfortable and back inside the library. So it makes me very happy. It's just, it's been missing, it's been returning. So it's really good. In March, the weather was not great, unlike this last week where it was beautiful. March, people were looking for something to do with the kids and people were thinking about the library. So that makes me very happy. The expedition has started. So the library expedition is officially launched by Upper Hudson. We have had lots of people in getting their map stamped coming into the library. So we've got some fun stuff on the way. I don't want to steal your thunder, but we've got some fun stuff to do here for folks as they come in on the way shortly. So
How long is that going into?
it's all summer long.
Okay.
There's at the end of the year, the celebration party for the expeditions in September. So really, I wish I had an exact date, but it's the whole, so it's July 31st. Thank you. So fully in support of the summer reading program now.
We did ask them to extend it, because it was supposed to be earlier, and I was like.
Just keep it going through the summer. That's when we get a lot of people who are coming in. So apparently one of our libraries was closed for some construction. People were so vehement about getting their library. They walked through the middle of a construction site and got yelled at by the foreman. So out there in the ether, if there's a construction site, you can come back for your stamps.
Any posters?
Hmm?
Are there new posters?
There
Oh
are.
my God, go on the store.
Yeah, you can, there's swag you can buy. There's library expedition swag.
I'm just saying, I have to replace the poster on my office door.
Yes, we have, oh, Kristen has one for you. So the posters that they sent to us were too small to fit in our poster frame, so we got the file and printed them in the right size, which means we have some slightly smaller.
So I'm not sure if you mentioned, Jeff, for the public, did you say what that was, what the
The library expedition is the Upper Hudson program to just encourage people to visit all 36 locations, 29 libraries in the Upper Hudson library system. So all the libraries in Albany, Rensselaer County, and then all the branches, which is 2 for Troy and 7 for Albany, encourage people to just get out and visit not just their own library, but all the libraries across. So it's fun. People were very excited. They independently asked me, when is this going to start up again? So, and then there's the prize at the end is a special library card that only the 36ers get. Special library card, and this year for the first time you can keep your number. So if you love your library card number but want a new card anyway, that's it.
Take books out for free too.
That's right. You can take books out. Help out the circulation. What's interesting for us, the overall impact on our door count is not much. It's a few people. I love it. But for some of our smaller libraries, it's like an overwhelming fire hose of people coming through their door. That's a percentage of the people who come through. So it's a big deal. Some cute libraries out there. Portland's getting a bus for staff on the day. The seed library is open. We already filled 4,600 about seed packets for people. The first month, just for people in the Bethlehem School District. They ordered them online. Now they're on the back of the information desk and available. Anybody who wants to come in, whatever seeds are here are available for folks. So all those folks who don't live in our district, their seeds. Maybe it's not too late to get your tomatoes. But there's herbs and flowers and all kinds of stuff though. Space is great. We do just a quick report because we've been talking about the volunteer program. We had 33 hours of our team volunteers in the past month, just during the month of March, and 11 and a half hours of adult general population folks who want to come in and volunteer with us. Most of our teen hours are related to participation in government hours, but we have 15, Tracy, 15 participation in government students interested in getting their hours in before the end of the year, and I'm like, I'm just getting short, folks. I'll do my best to get you in. So we'll set them to work. So all together now is, as I've said before, is our theme for the summer reading program, and those programs will come out and be launched in the footnotes. Lots of great programs. Read about them. Just I'll mention here, this Bethlehem Historical Association. They just had their last program for the series. Again, filled the room. This is our cooperative project with Bethlehem Historical Association. They had more than 90 people in that room, and we're filming it. So 2 of them now we filmed this one with Jack McEnany, and we filmed the last one, which was Steamboats on the Hudson. We filmed it and it's available on YouTube. Sound is better this time than last time because Jeff with the camera, so that's better.
I had like 4 people tell me that's a great book.
That people are very excited about. And they like having them here. I mean, obviously everybody a little bit more room, but I think we're easier to work with, and they, the partnership is great. So we find some good speakers. So lots of story times, just coming more heavily attended. I'm expecting that number will go up a lot during the summer, as it always does, but it's nice to see this spring run of the summer story times be successful. And our Saturday story time, which has been up and down in success in the past, but we're getting 20 to 40 people every Saturday. So that makes me happy that back up and running. Mark, I know you wanted to talk about Mary Miller and that New York Newspaper Foundation. So that's scheduled for the 25th of July. We've got that. That program was scheduled for just like April 2020. And it got canceled because of the pandemic. So we've circled back, still interested in doing the program, obviously. A little bit more AI, which is new since then. We'll have that program. And then the thing that will be dominating us for programming for the coming year is this 24. We're having another eclipse. We'll be raised by a full eclipse here in Albany. If you go a little west and a little north, you'll get a full, a full-on solar eclipse. So last time this turned into a overwhelming interest. So we have a lot of solar glasses. I don't know if we're gonna be able to fill everything, but we've already got ours in the building. We're ready for this when the time comes, and we'll have a bunch of programming in the months before leading up to next April, which is solar. That's exciting. And just mentioning RFID, thanks, Phil. So we're replacing our barcodes. Putting them on the back of the book, which is where most of our barcodes are on the back of the book. The older books, they're still inside on a pocket. So we're using the barcode duplicator to move those back. So it's a project for the pages, they're moving the barcodes. It's an analog for if we wanted to get radio frequency identification for our books, which as we're looking at a building project is an ability to a system that could do automatic check-ins and checkouts for people. Just something to keep in your back of your mind as we're looking at how long it would take for us to tag our whole collection. And this project is a pretty good analog for that. So I don't get too far into that. We'll talk about RFID later, but I don't want you to have not heard me mention it. There it is. And then we got a couple questions from time to time about fine free, and I just want to reassure people that the on-time return rate is higher post fine free than it was pre fine free. That's the takeaway from all of this. Bill continues to track those things, and we'll track it into the future now that we know this is something we want to track. But I have a lot of patrons who are like, well, now there's no books in the library because of fine free. I'm like, well, that's not true. More things are returned on time than were before. So
You also have the reminders, which really.
yeah, I mean, we still do.
In the automatic.
Yeah.
That's the bigger.
Right, exactly.
And then just mandatory sexual harassment training took place. We had very high compliance with that. Tracy, I think we're almost done with all of our staff people. I met with folks I mentioned in a previous meeting. I just want to bring it back around that I met with folks, Dave Van Leeuwen from town, the new head of town historian, and some reps from the Bethlehem Historical Association. There is an interest in if there's any possibility for us to collaborate somehow on secure record storage for local history records. And I think there are some concerns about the Little Red Schoolhouse that's down in South Bethlehem, where a lot of these records are stored. Town has some, we have some. And the question is there a space for that at some point in the future? I think town hall, the answer is no. So it's just something to keep in mind. There's a request. Community that, lots of libraries have local history materials. We have some. Question is, would we want to dedicate more space to that in the future? Just a question for us to think. That's the official.
As we think about that in the future and perhaps with the bond project, and those, could you keep us updated on what the impact on the staff would be? I mean, so we have space and then we have materials, but what, I think as we consider that, we need some additional information about how people use it, how they get into it, how is it monitored?
Well, and that's the thing, the question would be, what is it? Is it just a safe place for those records to be accessible only really by the same people from the Bethel Historical Association who access them now, which is better than where they are? Or is it our job to make those more accessible and then work towards that being more like a library? And there would be some staff on that. So anywhere from very little to none to some, depending on what we want to do with it when it's here.
I mean, how much they talk? Is there like?
I don't have the number. No, that's exactly my question. I said, how many linear feet? And so
we're gonna fill the room or?
when we talk about how much space and how many shelves we need, we talk about linear feet. So I've asked them to assess both the town and the source. I said, give me the number of linear feet. I can estimate back into that how many linear feet of shelving that we need, and then how much space is needed for that linear. I think it may not be as high as what I feared it could be. I think it's relatively dense record storage in folders is not huge. It's not huge.
Okay.
But without that number,
Yeah, it's
it's very amorphous for me. I don't know.
I think in your notes, you talked about the moving seminar that was offered here on how to like clean out stuff
Yes.
before you move.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking like, well, everything come or maybe they'll just talk to those people and see like, are there things that they can even call out?
I think there's a lot of historical objects, and that's not what we're talking about. We were talking about records.
Tape.
Yeah.
Paper records that can't be scanned or.
It's a volunteer nonprofit, right? And so who's doing that?
Volunteers?
It could be us, but it's gonna coordinate the volunteers, right?
Right, exactly.
That's in our wheel. Those are the kind of things that we do in our wheel now. But I think we're not running down there to do it. So.
No, I agree, yeah.
Here, we would. I don't think we should have, personally, there's no reason to house it if we're not gonna make it.
I totally agree. It's gonna be a locker room in the library.
Kind of like the archives, like archives.
Yeah.
You know, we make an appointment or whatever, but I think we can still explore it and also hear from the staff, just like what are the visions, but that's down the road, I guess.
When we were touring other libraries at the very beginning with the different plannings.
Yeah.
There was one library that had like a whole room.
Goodland has a room. I mean, so there's a lot of libraries that do this.
Yeah.
It's just, we happen to be in a place that has a lot of those services that are provided by other agents. So they hold them. And so we don't have a lot of historical records here in the building. Other libraries I've been in, they have the Lincoln letter, right? We don't have anything like that. We don't have those kind of important objects. So it's not inappropriate for the public library to have. It's just a question of,
Right.
are we the best place to do that?
I think they had like a lot of display cases.
Yeah, right. And people are interested. So it's right. And then oh yeah, and then it was just we're replacing the art in the break room, and so we have a staff contest, staff photo contest. So those are gonna be in there. We'll do a little mini reception when we hang those up. So we're excited about that. Some interesting bits about the statistics. We continue to see obviously increases in circulation, though smaller than they've been in recent months, right? So our circulation is really stabilizing at these 55,000, 56,000, 60,000. This is all getting much more normal from a pre-pandemic level. Where we're seeing the big increases are in like your door count. So 2% increase in circulation, but a door count increase of almost 30%. So that's the year-over-year number. So this is where I always like when the numbers reflect what I feel in the library. So we've been feeling that there's more people returning to the library, there's more people studying here, there's more people just being in the library in a way that hasn't been for a little while. And these numbers about all these in-person statistics, bear that out. So that makes me feel good when my impression meets what the statistics. Just a return to normalcy, and that you can see, you know, a 30% increase in door count, very similar to a 28% increase in the wireless use. These are all in-person things that happen. That's that. Questions?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, moving on to UHLS.
Well, other than plugging the expedition, which, you know, at the upper Hudson level, they're trying to get the whole board to do things together, and I sort of offered that we had done that with our board, and probably could do it again. if we wanted to. The annual meeting is June 14th. They had narrowed it down to 2 places, and I had really hoped that I knew coming in what it was, but I haven't gotten any. So they're both good options. So both in Rensselaer County. So stay tuned for that one. And then the annual awards applications are out. The deadline is May 1st. And so I'm on that committee. So we'll be reviewing those once those come in. No budget news, so nothing to report there.
So the One House bills look good for us. I mean, whether that represents reality when it gets past that.
No.
Everybody likes libraries. Everybody likes libraries.
I'm walking around the LOE, I see a lot of libraries, it's like support libraries, that's an indication.
Great.
I mean, that's good.
Right.
It's not having something, right, so. Yeah. Okay, any questions for Lisa on that? All right, new business, drug and alcohol policy. First reading.
So that's in your packet. You can read through. Basically, this was due for an update, and particularly, I thought there might be some bigger changes given that marijuana is now illegal in New York State. I thought there'd be some larger changes. As it turns out, you know, not really, just a little bit of language. You know, just like alcohol is legal, and you can't be working when you're on alcohol. Similarly, you can't be working. So those are handled very similarly in our policy. And then at the end, there is this federal contract over to we don't have any federal contracts over $250,000, but maybe someday we could. And our attorney recommended that we put that in there to stop. That's just for any federally.
By the way, I love the little notations at the very bottom, you know, in terms of keep tracking it right there on the date. So the policy committee has reviewed and commented it.
I don't get to take any of the credit for that. I agree. It's great. Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
He was honest.
All right, so people should take a look at that.
Yeah.
We'll bring it back next board meeting. Schematic design process update.
Okay,
We're gonna do comprehensive records. That's
later. Yeah, I don't have anything in the packet about this. Packet.
okay.
The schematic design process update. Mark and Jen and I met briefly just for a quick touch meeting with Ashley McGraw. The contract, since we met last, the contract was reviewed by our contract attorneys and approved. That was negotiated between the attorney and Ashley McGraw and was approved to sign. Mark came in and signed them, and that's been returned. So we're all official. The process is beginning. So this meeting was just a little bit of a kickoff. One of the questions they had for us was about scheduling some community feedback. So that can be one of several different things. It could be a focus group meeting with a whole group. It could be a public presentation where we invite everybody from the public. They'll do whatever we want to, have whatever kind of public feedback on how the project's going, and it's soliciting some of those questions that we've been trying to elicit responses from people about, what would you want to see in friends?
Yeah.
They're in the community.
Oh, community, okay.
So the, trying to elicit that feedback, and we've got that document about feedback we've listened to, but we can do a specific, two of these specific meetings are written right into the contract. So think about that a little bit. We can have a little bit more discussion about what you imagine, what kind of meeting you like them to have. Those will be in person. They'll come out and do them. Or we could have, you know, as first bluff, I was thinking maybe a focus group and then a wider sort of invite the whole community and see who shows up. But I think with a focus group, at least you know, you talk to people ahead of time, you know they're going to show up and never know folks. Just opportunity. That's that. There's a schedule. I think Jen's got copies of those for everybody if you don't already have them. Just a very tentative schedule. We're off a little bit, but I think we can make that up pretty quickly. Yeah, no, we're okay.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
When, do they have a ballpark on when they want the meeting? I mean, the public meetings? That's after the design sort of phase, or I'm trying to.
I mean, I thought they left.
They kind of, it's up to us, wherever we think they slot in a little bit, we
Okay.
can have them a little bit later, because we asked for them, we said, you know, we already had all the public meetings as part of our long range plan. We didn't do it under the feasibility study. They're like, they're here, we can do it earlier, like now, or we could do it a little bit later as there's a little bit more design.
Something to respond to.
Yeah,
So as opposed to like free discussion
correct.
versus response.
Right, but they're written into the schematic design phase of this
Okay.
project. So that would be this chunk between now and, we're looking at the end of August, so sometime between now and the end of August.
You're gonna have a 50% board presentation on July 20th. Like, kind of, I thought that might, in my view, that might be the time to say, oh, board meeting will be public, people look at that, but also might be enough of something that people can react to. I'm just trying to pick a time. You know, I'm not interested in doing another free association thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, but I think we better say, here's something, react to it, and you get free association.
Yeah, sure. What's missing, what's, you know, whatever.
Right.
The only thing is to be careful this summer. So
Yeah,
that,
that's
you know,
what I
people on
wanted.
vacation, they're saying, oh, you had during summer and you could, you know, so I'm wondering, you know, just be mindful that. You know, May, yeah, I don't know, you know, again, we have to look at the calendar, but you hate to have something like in August and people said, well,
Yeah.
people may be away or just back to school, and just be mindful of the other things that. If in fact we want to capture as many people as possible to be as, you know, is there a way to do something before? For those folks who leave, and I realize that not everyone does. Of who's here and who's not, you know, in terms of just summer plans.
Well, we're gonna try to get scheduled a sort of a bi-weekly touch-in, just very similar to the meeting. We had just a quick 15-20 minutes, just where are we going, and that way we can make sure that we can communicate those sorts of things back to them a little bit faster. So,
And maybe I saw this on the minutes, but somewhere when reviewing this material, I saw something about March 2024. As a time frame for something, and it may have been in the minutes. There was somewhere that said Ashley McGraw. It was about the bond, when to schedule the bond,
yeah,
and it
right.
may have been in the minutes.
Well, that would be our sort of getting to the drop dead deadline for the library. That's when we really do that in February or March, when we have to tell the school district that we're putting something on the ballot. Right, so if the board was gonna move forward. Decided that a little bit ahead of time. If you're gonna move forward with a vote next May of 24. Then we absolutely have to know the amount that we're asking. You know, we have to have some we have to know what we're doing. By that, so that's,
So I thought, I was like, for some reason that date caught me, and I thought, it's gonna take that long. So this is possible to have a schematic. I would ask them, is it possible to have a schematic with prices stuck on it before the board? And if we wanted to do a bond vote at an earlier date? Or is that, are we basically looking for next May?
I think it's feeling to me like it's next.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not possible if we were to hit the gas full on and we say what we knew we're asking for, but right now we don't. We don't even have a schematic design to know. I will have this in hand by August. So that's, that's completely separate from the SCD review process. Other separate piece, but they have to have stamp plans before you do. So we have to get to the stamp construction documents before we see.
Right. Yeah, so the SED review happens after the bond vote.
Yes, or kind of, they turn on, to two different parallel.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, so people could kind of think about that question. How to use the resources of Actions Best.
On this chart at the very top where it says upcoming to be scheduled. What is
Yeah,
retirement?
I saw that.
community stuff?
Say again, what's what?
Retirement community session.
People next door. About the construction.
I don't know.
That can be focus group.
Yeah, that didn't come up in the meeting.
That didn't come in the meeting. I don't.
Okay.
No, they may have misheard something. I'm going out to the Spinney to have a conversation at the Spinney. They invited me to speak to them. I think maybe they're getting that mixed up.
Okay.
So I'm going to speak at the Spinney just to say, they asked me to come over and talk to them about, so I can elicit a little bit more feedback from the feasibility study. I'm wondering if that's,
That's not them.
they're not doing that, I'm doing it. So I think they,
It's not.
I think what,
Guys, whatever their name is now. Let me turn around and change their name. So
it's another.
It's a different.
It's not,
Different one. It's
Yes.
not.
Not this one.
No.
Heroin, yeah.
Yeah, it's by high school.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay.
so this, I think, this document came after our meeting, so I think it just got a little confused.
Okay.
They're saying, oh, you're doing a retirement community and then a community focus group. We talked about a community focus group. And then the other thing we talked about was what would you want it to be? We could have two of those big open meetings. Community focus group, two community focus groups, or a focus group and a community meeting, but not a retirement.
Okay.
That's a little too specific for that. I'll clarify that.
Okay, so that's the update on the schematic design process. As I said, we'll look for feedback on. Like, and then, yeah, going through the,
CT mail proposal?
yeah, let's do that.
So
Yeah.
we have a proposal which was solicited by Keplinger Freeman, who is our affiliated landscape architect engineer firm that's affiliated with Ashton McGraw. And they're saying we need to do a survey and topographic survey of the library properties, including all four of the library properties. Older properties, which has been integrated into the parking lot, and then the new house. We need to do a survey of all of them. They solicited a quote from CT Mail to do that work. It's outside the scope of our project, so it's not covered under the cost of the design. In our meeting, I said, is this a firm that you're recommending that we use? And the folks from Keplinger Freeman sent me an email and said they are in fact the firm they're recommending. If you want me to read this letter to you. Included as attachment to this letter is the proposal we received from CT Mail Associates to prepare a topographic boundary and utility survey of all the parcels owned by Bethlehem Public Library. We believe that a current and comprehensive survey is necessary to provide an accurate design of the site and building condition. Our office has worked with CT Mail Associates for many years and feel that the attached quote is reasonable. The surveyor is responsible and prepares a survey that will include all the necessary information required for us to prepare an accurate site design, including siting of the building addition. They recommend that the library board of directors sign the survey proposal from CT Mail Associates so they can get it on their schedule as soon as possible. And it's over my limit, so the quote is for $14,500. That's over the limit that I can
Yeah,
authorize.
I think we have to get a new one too, because 3.3, it's only good for 30 days.
Yeah, but
But it'll be the same. I mean, I don't think there'll be a price difference.
Makes sense, if you get a survey to do stuff on my house,
Yeah.
so.
Well, exactly, yeah.
yeah, and we've had surveys of the property, but never all.
Yeah. Any questions on that?
You, yes, it's over my.
A motion to accept the contract for a survey of the library property based on the quote from Kathleen Grove Green's.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, so in opposition, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
No, fine.
Okay, old business, going to plaza entry.
Okay,
Fun.
plaza entry,
Fun topic,
okay.
another fun topic.
Okay. All right, so we had as part of our conversation with Ashton McGraw, I asked them to help us in contacting SED for a little bit more information, because I have been singularly unsuccessful in getting anybody from the Office of Facilities Review to respond to my emails. There's a couple ways we can go, I think. Basically, it's gonna come down to, is this something we just want to do it now, right? Before the snow flies, get it done, or go through the process with SED, in which case it's not gonna happen before winter. So, we don't need to decide on that because there are no quotes, there's no bids, there's no nothing to decide, but those are.
Are we talking about asking forgiveness instead of permission?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your question, so what sparked this off with your question last time, where you said, oh, is this grantable? Can we get some construction money for this? So that sent me down the rabbit hole of talking to the, no, it's okay, it's a good question. So I talked to our folks, our friends at the Division of Development, and they said, well, if you get $10,000 needs, as you, in order to get a CD review, they're gonna want backup, which means stamp plans, like an engineer and our plans to do it. There's a couple options of ways to get that done, but all of them involving SED are gonna involve that review and those plans, right? So so it's just gonna be, it's gonna be longer and it's gonna be more expensive. Possible that we can classify this as an emergency repair and then get permission later, or we can just do it anyway, because it's just concrete.
I mean, I'd hate to go through another winter having that
So-
issue out there, with the opportunity to do it.
Is the proposal to remove what's there and then pour over?
No, remove the brick. So I asked for a quote from a landscape service company, just to get an idea of the scope of what we're doing. And the proposal was to remove the bricks, leave the edges of the concrete, and then just pour concrete all the way out, so remove all the brick all the way out. Dig the sand down to an appropriate level, so it's deep enough to match the rest of it. That's the quote I got, and that quote was for about $60,000. Now, that's over the $35,000 that we would have to send. You have to bid that. That project would have to be bid. You know, a sealed bid. We have to do a real sealed bid. It's enough money that we can't just decide on that. That's not, get me a couple quotes. That's published in the paper. We solicit some bids. They have a sealed bid, and we go with either best value or cost bid that we get.
And I didn't catch what you said right before you started, Mark. You said something.
About, I hate to go through another winter with having that being a problem. I think we should deal with it now.
Definitely classify this as an emergency
I need to.
repair. No. I don't see an issue with
I
that.
mean, it's health and safety. You know, patron risk. You know, so. Yeah. But I hear from everyone, what people think, should we go for it, or should we go through the process and possibly get it, get some money towards it on the construction grant, possibly, because there's no guarantee.
It's the worst that I see.
Rip it up. Right, they're not gonna say that, so.
I say go.
I mean, it seems worth doing, and I think, I mean, you had made a comment about people having issues with the bricks not being there in
Right.
terms of aesthetics,
Aesthetic,
but like,
yes.
can't you do stamped? Like some sort of design into it and at least looks better than,
Yeah.
you
Or
know, a
maximum,
giant curb.
whatever the maximum coefficient of friction is what I want. What makes it the least slippery?
Maybe throw some planters out there, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's really emphasizing that it's temporary, that there will be a project and that the overall.
Health and safety.
Yeah, it's definitely not the, I mean, this is why I understand why it's a hard decision. This is not the entrance to the line. No matter what happens with whatever project we eventually end up. This can't be the entrance to the library, like it needs to move because that's the biggest complaint we have. So, we
That's
have,
gonna be the entrance for the next 3 years, at least.
minimum, right,
3 to 4, maybe 5 years. So,
You're talking about 4 or 5 years for the bond projects?
before it's done.
before you go underground.
Well, I mean, I'd love to do it too, but
No way. I mean, it depends how fast they move and how fast the board moves. I'm still wrapping my head around March 2024.
yeah,
Because I said, it depends how often the board wants to meet, and that I just suddenly realized there's a difference. The school board meets every 2 weeks. And so decisions can be made. So part of me says you have the designs, the board chooses design. They slap prices on them. The board approves that price. And so as I said, part of me is still like, I'm still stuck on that. Why is that taking so long? But I'm gonna go with that, but
no, I actually totally agree with you on that, and just knowing kind of SED review process, they're gonna
Yeah.
get stuck.
There's
Yeah.
that and-
well,
or is that
been,
where
it used to take
library
like
not
6 or
split
8
districts?
months. Now it's down to 3 to 4. I'll be interesting what the school, we got the last school bond, but it had been shortened significantly, half. The last bond project that what I was so on board, but I don't know what, with the backlog and COVID and stuff now, I don't know, but.
And the outside engineers review that OFP was using, that program has ended. So now they're doing the reviews all back in-house again, so. I don't know that it's gonna be as fast as it has been for a while. It's terrible, and it seemed to be better, but I don't know where it is right now. I don't have any.
So at least 2 years. So,
Yeah, 3 days, but
Right.
I was like.
Yeah.
Say healthy 3.
So just for me to clarify, so we're saying we're just gonna go ahead, do this. And then I guess I'm still not fully understanding SED's role, like, and then. That's fine, and they're just,
Well, there's an emergency out. I mean, technically, or a health and safety, I'm not sure how that's written, but you can do projects that are emergency in nature or they're, I think of health and safety. I don't know.
Right, so for instance,
without having to get their approval. So
Right,
they're
you-
simply gonna say, this was why we went ahead and did this,
Right.
because it was health and safety.
Yeah, and you also could ask, we did the project and then retro saying, hey.
right, they're never gonna say. The people at SCD review, they're not gonna say. Yeah, that was fine for you to do that. They would want us to get the stamp plans and then still submit them afterwards. Just seems for the nature of this project. You can do it, that's what we wanna do, happy to do it, but it's gonna.
I'm reading into your comment and maybe not. Right. Is it a requirement? To have SED? review?
Everything over $10,000.
So it is a
ought to be
requirement, so we're
reviewed.
going in,
Right,
We're going to
fill in
use
the
a
verb, that
legitimate-
requirement by saying it's an emergency and then going back, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're just saying, I think because.
I think it is.
For the public's
Yeah.
benefit,
Yeah,
we don't
it
feel that any of
really
this,
is.
this is not an emergency.
Yeah.
But that said, doing it whichever, in the way we seem to be leaning, we would still put together all the materials. Should there be any follow-up?
I mean, so I would not be seeking. An engineer or architect's stamp plans on the front, but if you want me to do that, Ash McGraw is happy to help us with. The quote for that. It's one of this. It's a hard, I get it, it's just, it seems silly, it's one of those things where the rules, this is not what the rules are designed, for. This situation is not what the rules. But and if we were gonna we were gonna go through the whole process of getting the SCD review ahead of time, then we might as well not do it. I mean,
Right.
really, just say, okay, we're just gonna invest heavily in salt. And we'll make salt for the next 3 years. It's administrative weight on this is a lot if we want to go through.
Right.
And it's gonna add.
So then we wouldn't have any documentation and should that SED circle back to us.
That's great. If we want to get stance plans from an architect, we can ex post facto, we can see, do this as an emergency and ask for that. What we would do if we had like if a boiler just
Yeah.
completely died, you're still gonna have an engineer come in and fix stuff. Or something that involved this much. Question?
Just to clarify for myself, because obviously the bricks have been out there for years and years and
Yeah.
years, but we're gonna make it a priority now, 5 minutes before we're doing this other huge update. And that is because the climate change is different and we have been encountering more winters that are at a weird temperature where ice is more frequent.
It-
That is why there is some
Yes.
pressure.
There's been a pressure now, there's been a pressure for a long time. So this has been before the board for the better part of a decade. So it's not that the staff hasn't been talking about this for a long time. So we went all the way to having, we had a landscape architect, we actually had a huge survey and a proposal. Prices were high, snow melt systems and all sorts of things to address. this.
Geothermal.
Right, so this is a comparatively slapdash. Simple solution to a problem that has lots of good solutions, but has been plaguing the library for at least a decade, 2009. So. Then,
Sarah, I think that you are correct, that in past years, it has only been a certain number of days where this was really an issue. This past winter, because of more middling temperatures, the icing was an issue a significantly greater number of days. I mean, and I think that probably the amount that we closed the library probably
Yeah.
bears that out
Yeah.
compared to other years.
And there's nothing to vote on because there's no bid or anything.
There's nothing-
But we just want to make sure that.
Do they provide any definition of what constitutes an emergency repair? In any regulation?
this is what I want to talk to them about, is why I've been trying to get in contact with them.
Yeah.
But once I contact them, then a decision, once I get a hold of SED, the decision of how we're gonna move forward is going to be made. Like, once they're aware of this.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Cause I mean, is it the boiler blows up, the roof caves in, that's versus priority.
Yeah,
We're
I mean-
moving on this, yeah.
Right, but I wanted to have a simple conversation. I've been trying for the better part of a month to have that exact conversation with someone from the Office of Facilities Review and have been singularly unable to get a hold of anybody through multiple means of communication, where I finally asked our architect, like, you have to know somebody now. It has to be someone that you can get a hold of. I just think this is so unimportant from the SEDs, the people at SED. This is so massively unimportant compared to what they do every day. Fire safety and school safety. I just don't think it's getting any polar attention. So I think Ashley McGraw could get us a meeting with them. Could at least get me someone on the phone. They said that they could. We'll try to do that.
So- What about asking Upper Hudson to reach out and on behalf of the system, asking for?
So I reached out to Upper Hudson already. I got some advice about who I should try to contact and we've tried those. That Upper Hudson isn't going to reach out necessarily, but
Well, why can't they?
I don't know.
Or they
that
could
better
have the system, like,
contacts. Right, I asked our
have
folks at
information as guidance to other libraries.
I asked some folks at DLD, we have some very good contacts at DLD,
Yeah.
right? And they're closer to this, they all work together at SED though. So, and those were.
And the district.
I'm not being coy, I mean,
Yeah, district hasn't been, consider reaching out to the district for any assistance for the.
we could try that as well. So I thought to go to usually the architects, especially some of the Ashley McGraw is a school architect.
Yeah.
They know, they can. They can get us, and they're willing to do that.
But just to be clear, you're saying we don't really want to ask them because then they
No.
know and then that's.
Well,
Then, right, you're correct.
As you said, permission or forgiveness.
Yes, and I think it's more about a time issue Yeah.
I don't think that I'm saying anything I already know. The state agencies are extremely understaffed and overworked. Submitting anything. I do a lot, putting two SED in other contexts, but the timelines are, there's no timeline that they could potentially promise us.
Say we chisel it up and pour it out in some concrete.
Kevin's halfway willing to just do that himself. We'll get out there, mix it up in a wheelbarrow on the way stuff. It's all.
So just to summarize, if we were to go forward with a project without SCD approval, we basically are. We knowingly are going to go.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would have a major problem with that. And I think we can have more important discussion about it, but I would have. We knowingly going against that.
okay, so
Well, wait, but to be clear, we're not necessarily, because there is a clause for emergencies, and
Yes,
there could be an argument being made that this is indeed emergency,
yes,
and that we tried to get a hold of them, they did not respond.
so any of the emergency repairs, we're still committing ourselves. All of us to hiring an architect. To design us a thing that is replacing. That concrete, replacing the bricks with concrete. We still have to go out, we're committing ourselves to that process, we have to get an architect, and we have a relationship with an architect, it's a separate contract, we sign that contract. To get that design done, because whether we're getting their approval ex post facto or ahead of time, there's still gonna be plans that are gonna be reviewed for safety by SCD. And those plans are gonna be designed by an architect or engineer. They've stamped plans, that was. SCD isn't gonna just take the Jeff's description of what project it is, they're gonna want to have a project, design project.
So we would go through all of the steps, but then they would approve it after the fact.
Correct.
Okay, so I think
Okay, popped it up, I'm sorry.
so let's go to the policy committee updates. Can we split the order? Let's do the confidential records policy first and the other, let's do the policies first and then we go back to the donation name rights. That's okay. I think we can bang these out quickly.
Oh, yeah, good.
So on the confidential records policy, this is the second read. People had any questions or concerns of this version of the policy? It's pretty dry.
Cut and dry.
Pretty good. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion on the adoption of this policy.
So moved.
Okay, second. Okay, any questions, any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand, seeing no oppositions, motion passes. Okay, the next one is an exam proctoring policy. So another second read policies. Any other, can we get any comment on it from anyone or any questions on this? No. Okay. Any discussion? All right, ask for motion on this one too.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
great. Any further discussion? Okay, any ask for a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, motion adopted, since it's adopted. Going back to the donation name rights. And Charmaine, you want to start there?
So I just want to appreciate the members of the policy committee, we're cranking well.
Yes,
And we're
very,
having some
very
coffee
thankful.
meetings. So I just want to appreciate people's work and the time that we're into it. So what we've been doing is doing 1 to 3 policies each meeting and then dedicating half hour to naming rights. And so we've come back to the question, I think that's on the minutes.
Yeah.
The committee said, we'll do it, we've looked at some other things, we know what we could cut and paste, size of spaces, ranges of fees, these amounts that would be given to it, so we could cut and paste a lot. And bring that before the board. The question is. I call it time, place, and manner. So we're looking to the trustees to say, is it going to be a kind of a dedicated space where people get like the bookcase or something out in the hallway, where people get recognized for their contributions to the library in a single centralized location? Or are there gonna be locations throughout the library that would be, could be bearing people's names, whether it's corporate or not, because we have to have that discussion in the policy committee, or family names or whatever, for rooms, cubbies, spaces like the reading spaces. So we wanted the board to decide that.
So we sent out a policy that would, Santa Clara policy, we sent that out, sort of, that's what this would look like. I think our policy would probably be very similar to that, so it's just a question of, is it something we want to do?
Going back to that fundamental question, because we could cut and paste from additional ones, we have some, and we would do it if the board said, or that's what we want to do. So centralized location, something and then the board could decide what that might look like, or are there gonna be, spaces around the library?
I mean, or it could kind of entail both.
Right.
Because I almost view the centralized location as maybe smaller scale donations versus naming a room or a study carrel or whatever. Children's library or is a lot bigger.
Yeah, it could be a modified version. But so it's really the bigger question of, will there be rooms that would be?
I think the central location, we have something that's like that, I think it'd be vastly improved, but we have a little bit something like that's not too far outside of our wheelhouse. Naming spaces around the library, naming rooms in the library, that's a step from where we are right now. So the question is that something we want to do or something we don't want to do? Something we would entertain. It's not that we're going to do it. Is it something we would entertain or something the board's not interested in?
And I think what I've, from reading some of the different policies, one of the clauses that has stuck in my mind is most places will not put that, like if you're going for a room. Well, the name doesn't go up until the gift is received in full. And so that's some of the some differences that we're starting to pick up. It's like, so it's whether it's a one-time donation or donation over time, unless that donation is received in full. That's one of them. And some libraries have for 10 years, 20 years, whatever, that's what the donation not buys you, but gets you. So the committee would work up some of those details, but again, we just said, do the trustees want to have names for spaces and rooms?
Yeah, so what if you, I do, so I would say, I think it's worth going forward with the policy. But I'm interested to see what.
It seems to me like if people want to give us money, yay, wahoo, we want to take their money. And so then consequently, it would make a lot more sense to have a policy that we follow that is just set in stone instead of having to recreate the wheel every time someone comes forward and says, here's my $500, what can you do for me? So I say, let's make a policy.
Yeah, we have a policy that handles like a $500
Yeah.
gift. And it's very helpful. So you're 100% right. It really helps when people say, I want to donate a bunch of stuff, a thing to the library, and I go right back to the policy. It really helps me out a lot. We want to be careful about writing that because I use it frequently for that exact reason, because there's some stuff we don't want. And but this is that bigger thing. This is bigger stuff. And would you want to see the children's library named after a person?
Sure, they give us some more money, right?
Right,
But still,
right.
we're just gonna-
What?
Well, then that's
That's everything we decided, whether you want to do corporation or not. I did notice my library for my childhood, the Tufts County Public Library. The big company that's not a university in that town is Borg Warner, and they changed and one of their meeting rooms is the Borg Warner. So libraries do this and don't do this all over the place. There's no moral right answer to this. It's just a question of what do you want to see for our community? If that's something you want to see or not, or something you'd be willing to entertain.
And I think you had said that Gilderland went through the work of putting a policy together before their big project, and then nobody gave them any money, so
Right. And the thing
that
is,
could happen.
I've had,
the readies.
this all got kicked off because I've had 3 people or groups ask me this exact question in the next year and a half-ish. So it's not, there are some folks that are like, just something I'm considering, so, that's why I think we're.
We can say yes, if we want to do that and still write a policy that gives us gives the board an extraordinary amount of ability to say.
Yeah,
no.
I mean.
Yeah.
So
Right,
I mean, I think that's,
Okay.
I mean, so I think we can kind of split the baby there and that we say, yes, it is something that we will have a policy on and we will entertain. I mean, talk about the big gift, not the $500 gift. But we can draft a policy as such, or we just really have ultimate discretion.
okay. I remember at some point it was like, people were like, oh, I'm not interested. There were some people who have felt like that, but I'm not hearing that now. I'm not hearing anybody say, hard no, I'm not even interested in someone approaching us. So it sounds.
I'm I'm comfortable with it if we have also ways where people, so the going rate from some of the, it ranges 50,000 to 400,000. But like, that's one example, so, for rooms and spaces kind of things, and again, the policy committee would, if you say, put, ranges on it, we would do some more research and all. But if there's also a centralized location where people could be recognized for what they could give. It's, I think that was, for me, was the sticking point of, if there are means, folks with means could have a name on a room where someone who could use the library daily, weekly, just doesn't have access to those means, so. So what I'm hearing is perhaps the committee should centralize and then spaces. So then we'll start putting time into our cutting and pasting some of the policies.
Thank you for taking.
You make sure those are that's in the minutes over here.
What?
Make sure that's really clear on the minutes, so I remember what I was doing the next policy.
Doing sticker notes.
Yeah, one second.
Okay, that sounds great, thank you. Other old business negotiations updates.
So negotiations update, the next, we're scheduled to go back to the table in May. So. Negotiations proceed at pace.
Okay, any other old business anyone has? Any future business? Any public question?
Oh, it's me. All right, I have a thing. It's a function. No one has emailed me. Discussion.
Well, to move into executive session.
Yeah, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to executive session, discuss contract negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Well said.
All in
I'll
favor?
second it.
All in favor, please, signify by saying aye. Okay, motion carries, thank you.